What's good, team? Evan here for Gripst.com. We're back with part 4 of the best session I ever played. In this part of the series, I'm going to show you how to navigate a final table with the chip lead and the dream seat. If this is the first video that you're watching and you want to know the payouts for this tournament and my game plan for the final table, go ahead and check out part 3. And if you don't care about all that stuff and you just want to see the action and see how we get it stacking, then just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. So we're coming in the final table as chip leader with a pair of 10s. We got the dime pieces and we raise, hoping for action. We do not get shoved on. We follow that up by continuing our aggressive ways, investing in our image, raising with the queen 5 offsuit, hoping to not get shoved on. And once again, we do not get what we want. Here we are going to go ahead and raise again with the jack 6 suited, hoping to not get shoved on. Notice that we're raising into all the short stacks who can't do anything but wake up with a hand. If they don't get dealt a hand, they can't make a move on us because they just don't have the chips to do that. So that's really taking advantage of our seat. And you'll see that despite the fact I have a better hand here with jack 9, I'm not raising into the player Jay Cutler, who actually does have the chips to play back and make a move on me. So we just let them go to battle, and he tried to make a move on free money and it wasn't happening. And I should probably hide the known hole cards. That'd be a good idea, right? We don't want to have any spoilers. Clearly there's not much of a spoiler here. What they got? They both got the old rag cities. Jack 6, that hand's garbage. Why would anyone ever play Jack 6 suited? Piece of cheese, that thing. And 8-4 also. Big old piece of cheese. King 10's a hand that we could have considered making a play against Time to be top 1, especially since we have the chip advantage, but Hoa beat us to it. With his sizing, I'm just going to go ahead and guess that Hoa had a hand. He also is one of the newer players. With ace queen suited here, flatting and 3-betting are both options, but I wanted to give the short stacks a chance to move all in. I didn't want to shut them out of the pot. I wanted to give them room to, feel like they had some fold equity on a reshove. So I just flatted. There's also obviously the benefits of keeping his worst hands in. And when he checks to me on this flop, I am plenty happy to take a stab at this pot in case he has some small pair that he's giving up with. Or, even if he has middle pair or something, I have pretty good equity with like 10 outs. So I take a stab, he calls, and, worst case, I have some equity uncalled, and there's some equity coming in on the river. We go for that value bet, and he says, no thanks, I'm good. Also the fact that, he has a medium stack, with there being these short stacks in play, he has a lot less incentive to try to make a hero call on me, which means I have a lot more, bluff ability and bluffing opportunities, which is something that Fedor Holtz is very big on. And, he does all right, so must be something good. Queen's here. Got a great flop, just looking to build a pot. I bet on the smaller side to give free money room to go ahead and give me some free money. But he wasn't about that YOLO life, and he went ahead and folded. And with the Merson, probably would have opened, but Hoa beat us to it. And that being said, we do have the option to open a ton of hands being the chip leader, but that doesn't mean we have to. It's perfectly fine to sit back, relax, really pick my spots selectively, and just navigate this stack to the big pain spots and then really go ham. Pot odds here, what were we getting pre-flop? Heaps, 6-1. And that's not the flop we're looking for with King 6 suited, so we are outie. And you see free money made a really nice flat call with the aces, and Get a Life 2-2-2 got a really unfortunate turn, because although he turned open-ended with a flush draw, 4 of his outs were missing. So GG's to him. And with that, we are now guaranteed 900 euros. No big deal. We're playing for that 7K up top. So ace queen. I decided that I wanted to, pot control against the other big stack. It is a spot where I can apply some pressure on him, but my hand is so good that I want to take a flop, and I want to keep kind of his dominated range. And you can see that for the most part, this is how we played ace queen the entire tournament, and that's the kind of flop we're looking for. Once it goes check, check, it's on us to build this pot. So we go with the old, 60% pot. And big ol', why did we bet so small on the river? Oh, right, because if he has a pocket pair or like king high, we want him to be able to make that hero call because, you know, those are the only hands he can have that can call us. And if we half pot it or more, he's probably not calling with those. But he made that nice catch and filled up on the river. And if the river had not been a deuce, we may have opted to go bigger with our sizing on the end, because we can get paid by the worst aces. But once it pairs up, there's just so little that can pay us that it makes more sense to go on the small side and give more opportunity to get paid. Queen 7, definitely raising a steal. I mean, we're just raising every button at this point. There's so much up for grabs. What's in the pot to start each hand? Like a little over 6,000, so like almost 1.5 starting stacks. And we want to be picking those up because those are really going to enhance our position in the field, and you know, we're getting a larger percentage of the total chips in play, which is what we need to do, because at the end of the game, it's like Pokemon. We gotta catch them all. Letting the other boys have a little fun. And if you guys, you know, really want to get max reads on these guys, feel free to pay attention to the showdowns and just pause the video. I don't want the video to go too long though, so that's why I'm just like clicking through very fast. And if you pay attention to Hoa here, you're going to see that he gets done real dirty. Kings losing to sixes, and then aces losing to kings. And you know, some days it's just not your day, and his stars just weren't aligned that day. Does he need to call the last off with the 5-4 suited? Probably not. But when you just went from 100K down to 15, like, you can understand the frustration. So free money gets it done and makes us a little bit of free money. Guaranteed 1,200 euros at this point. Keep on rocking and rolling. And this is a good spot. I had in my notes. I noted all the bust out hands, and then in this one I wrote super mega ultra bust out hand, which is pretty sweet. So we got a 3-way all in here. Look at the action. See if you would have done the same. Min raise off of 15 big blinds. Shove of 15 big blinds. ISO, and then the call off with aces. ISO with queens. And do you guys call the reshove with jacks if you're Jay Cutler? Before the cards got turned up, obviously. And if you don't, why? And if you do, why? Feel free to post in the comments. Have your say. So Emilio does some good work for us, bumping us up once again to 1,500 euros. But we still aren't quite at that point where we can really apply crazy pressure because the significant pay jump is from 5th to 4th. Yeah, not 6th to 5th. Jacking off. I've been waiting for a chance to talk about this hand. You know, just getting in there, getting the action, and getting it done quick. Getting it over with quickly, which, yeah. Continuing with the aggression, we go for the raise with the 5-3 suited, and looking back, despite the fact that I had the chip lead, I don't think it was like super great. I know that the reason I did it was because pair range was really short with 5 big blinds. So I'm like, oh, people won't want to go out before him. But because the next pay jump was so insignificant that I noticed on review, I don't think this play has like that much added fold equity. And I'm just like raising 5 high into 5 players, which, you know, it's a lot of 5s, but it's just not necessary. And Jay Cutler wakes up with the kings against the dime pieces of free money and doubles back up, back in the game. So we got a raise and a call by Emilio, and pair arranged. Deading him on the flop, holding it down, you heard. A little walk skeet, raise and take, a little 9-10 sui, and let's look at the pot odds. We're getting 1.7 to 1. We need about 35% equity. And if we go ahead and flip the cards up, because I'm calling, it's almost 2 to 1. 1.75 to 1 is basically 2 to 1. And, you know, I'm going to have, you know, 33% equity against most hands, especially with a hand like 9-10 suited. In this particular case, we didn't have it. You can see it was the worst case scenario, but we still had 20%. It's not like we had 7. And I ran the numbers to see, you know, other than the very worst case, what about the second worst case where he has like a pair of 9s? Well, I guess that's not the second worst. Any overpair is equally bad. But other than when he has the 5 overpair hands, like when he has a pair of 9s and we only have the 1 over, we still have 38%, which really shows the power of suited connectors and their ability to get there and make big hands. So when it comes to all-in situations, you know, with a suited connector, you can usually bank on having about 40%, as long as it's not like 2-3 suited. especially when, you know, there are going to be times where they have an over and an under, and you actually have closer to like 45 or 50%. So we go for it, we run it, we get there partially, but not quite far enough to get the KO. And here we go. Here we go. Little 7-5 off. It's interesting because sometimes when I go through the hand history review, Hold'em Manager skips hands, so I didn't put this in the notes. But I know that this is just me leveraging my chip position. He's got a good stack. I have a gooder stack, and I know that he's going to be playing aggressive and raising a lot of buttons, so I just said, all right, I'm taking the lead in this one. And this is a very dry board, one that's very hard to hit, so a good spot for me to c-bet. And interesting. Because I was going to say, if I c-bet big, he's definitely going to be, you know, just letting it go. But by going small here, I encourage him to peel or to continue with like all the hands he called with pre-flop. But most of them are still really weak. So as long as I follow it up with a nice size bet on the turn, he's going to be folding all those ace highs and those king queens and those hands like that. The other thing is he knows what's coming. I'm betting 28K and I'm basically threatening 90K. So if he calls here, he's basically calling for his tournament life. And he said, you know what, bro? I'm good. The fact that I had a gut shot on the turn was a nice little bonus, but the main thing was, you know, pre-flop, he's going to be folding some of the time, but with the price I'm giving him, he may call with a lot. So I said, you know what, on the flop, I know you're probably going to peel, so go right ahead, but I wanted to be able to put 3 streets of pressure on as opposed to 2, and if I bet like 24K here, now we have less than a pot size bet on the turn. So we can't really apply max pressure, but by going a quarter of the pot, we still had more than pot on the turn, and I have room to put in a small turn bet and then threaten a big river bet. And he's just got so many weak hands on the flop that have made it to the turn that he's folding a ton. Now, if the turn is a bigger card, I'm still going to barrel it because it's a good barrel card, but it's actually more likely he hits if the turn is, you know, an ace or a king or a queen. So that was a really interesting play and a really good one, and I'm glad that on the actual review here that this hand did not get skipped because, I mean, that was just a little bit of it's magic. And a really, really good demonstration of paying attention to stack sizes, paying attention to leveraging, paying attention to who we can apply pressure to. And it looks like this is a great spot for us to do it again. We c-bet nothing. We c-bet nothing on this board, quarter of the pot. And Jay Cutler just knows what's coming because he saw it on the previous hand. So it's like, yeah, I'm betting a quarter of the pot here on the flop, but I'm basically letting him know that I'm probably betting 90K by the river. So he can go ahead and make his decision now. And if I had a hand like aces, if I was going to bet, I'd probably bet this size. So it's not like I always have bluffs when I do it like this. And I remember at this point in the tournament, one of my old buddies came over, you know, right when we got to the final table. And I was like, you know, you can come in, you can sweat. But you know, I'm keeping it clean. I got my eye awake tracks going, my peak performance poker. I'm very focused. I'm very dialed in, and I've been paying serious attention to this table. I know these players well. Watch and see just what's possible. And I remember him being like, "Wow, man, you're doing some pretty crazy shit right here, but it's cool. I like it." And the really good players that I've watched, you know, they're capable of doing some really crazy shit. But it makes sense, and there's a reason they do it, and that's why I'm explaining the spots in this video. So what may seem crazy, you can understand why it's actually not that crazy, because so much of the time, like it's not about the cards in my hand. It's about the board texture, it's about the stack size, and it's about the possible cards that they can have, and just whether or not I can credibly have a hand. Like, as long as my story makes sense, you know, they just see the blue backs of my cards, and then they're guessing, like, oh, well, it looks like he has this. And as long as it looks like I have the hand that I need to have to get the result that I want, I'm doing fine. So Pair Arrange decides that he wants to take a stand here, and I just said, nah, I'm not going to let you put those new chips to good use. I know what you're trying to do here, especially with Emilio. It's a really good steal spot, so he's like, oh, I'll go for the re-steal. I'm like, I'm going to go for the re-steal. How you like them re-apples? And that puts us back in the chip lead over free money. And it looks like we may have a bust out hand. We sure do. Just a pot odds call there. Jay Cutler was getting 2-1, so despite the fact, actually even better, 2.6-1, despite the fact that he had a pretty junk hand with the Jack 5 suited, the odds were just too good. And like I said in one of the earlier parts, even against a fairly strong range, a random hand will usually have close to 33% equity. So, Jack 5 suited is probably a little worse than a random hand, but, you can still count on probably having about 30%, which is fine given the pot odds he was getting. Do we like a Milo shove there? Knowing he's probably getting called? I don't know. He is the short stack, so it is time to make a move, and he is ahead of the button's range. But, these other factors do come into play. But he's probably one of the guys who's going for one of the top spots, so he knew he wasn't going to make much happen on 5 big blinds playing 6-handed. So it was a good time to take a stand. And with that, we have bumped ourselves up to 1,800 euros, but more importantly, we're actually in a spot where we can apply some real pressure because the next pay jump is close to 1,000 euros, and that's fairly significant in this tournament. So we're probably going to see, everyone's probably going to be trying to take a stand, but, chip leader's going to chip lead. We're going to go ahead and raise as many buttons as we can and as many Mersons as we can as well, and just pick up all the chips that we can. There's 2 starting stacks in the middle, dead money every hand. It's about 1.25, 1.3% of the total chips in play every time we get a successful full steal through. That's significant. That's a very good amount of the chips. So we'll go ahead and raise the 10-8s. Probably go ahead and raise this Queen 7 as well. And this is another spot that's very similar to the Jack 6-6 board, that's similar to the Deuce 4 board, where I think that if he has an ace, he's obviously not folding, but if he has a hand like King High or a medium pair, he'll probably call 1 and then fold to later barrels. So what I did was I bet the minimum, because I was showing my buddy, I was like, you saw me make some plays with small size, and just watch how small I can go and still get the job done. And I didn't make this bet expecting him to fold to the 5K. No, I expected him to continue with, the wide range of hands that he had as a little reverse float, planning to take a stab if I shut down on the turn, which I had no intention of doing. So I followed up with that half pot bet, letting him know all of it's coming on the river, and the threat was good enough. In this particular case, I would not have fired off the 3rd barrel on the river because he almost certainly has an ace once he calls the 2nd bet. But we go ahead, get it through, get it done, and really are starting to separate ourselves from the rest of the field, building up to 300K. And mostly with no showdown. We have been doing some pretty crazy stuff, but they didn't know that. For all they know, Grips just had it, and Grips just had Ace 10 in this spot instead of Jack 3 off. Or Ace King. Ace King's always possible. And the great thing is that usually when we got played back at, like when pair range tried to make the play and we had the 8s, we just came right in over the top. We're like, nah, guys, like we got it. You don't want to mess with this. And that's really good for the image building when you were just relentless, and when people do try to play back, you're just like, nope, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to play fall. And they're just like, man, how does this guy always have it? And that's how you build that fear equity in your opponents, where they just say, you know what, I don't know what to do, but I'm just going to stay out of his way. And this is a spot that I was very curious about. I would love to hear the MTTers' thoughts on this spot because, blind versus blind, I think time to be top 1 is ahead of the shover's range with Ace 9 suited here. But with him having a decent stack, with pair range being very short, is this, the best spot that he can get? Is this a spot that he needs to take on his 24, 25 big blind, or is there potentially a spot, that could be better, given, the potential pay jumps and stuff? So I'd like to hear you guys' opinions on that. And the reasons why. Feel free to include any software calculations with ICMIs or whatever pieces or Hold'em resources, whatever kind of software you guys use. But I'm really curious about this spot because I know, like, early in the stage, or if this is cash game, you think the guy's range is weaker than yours, it's a snap call. But when there's pay jumps in play, things change. That being said, his seat matters as well. He's directly to my right, which is the worst seat for him to be in, but at the same time, he's also in position on the other 2 bigger stacks, and pair range isn't really doing much. So maybe his spot's a little bit more good than it is bad, and for that reason, there's less of a need to take a close spot. But yeah, either way, Jay Cutler holds there with the tater tots with a little bottom sizzle. And now we are four-handed, guaranteed 2,700 churros. And we're all in. Got an ace blind versus blind, obviously the best hand. Continue to apply the pressure with a little min piece on the butt with 10-8 O's. Continue to try to leverage those stacks. Para range is now significantly short, and the pay jump is, again, about 1,000 euros. So I figured free money is not just going to go with everything. So I went for the three-piece, hit him with the three-piece with the natural 9, and he had the goods. So he probably, or he just had enough of it. I think it's more likely he had a pretty decent hand. When you're making those plays, you aren't expecting them to fold their nuts. You're just expecting them to not have that nutty portion of the range all that often. And here with threes, I just go for the raise. If Jay was shorter and it was like 20 bigs or something, I could definitely shove. But with him having me covered, I don't really want to commit ICM suicide and risk going out in fourth. And we're just playing small pots here, me and Jay, while we're waiting for the other guys to go. So here we go. Throw it into Rip City, and Para Range makes the call. But again, I don't mind too much because my hand's probably got about 40%. Let's see what he's got. He calls me with the king, and I have 43%. Even though he has my suit, I still have 43%. So if he had a different suit, I'd probably have 47%. Basically a flip. And the flop, not so good. Not such a good flip. But you know what they say, ain't nothing funner than runner. You see how I made that queen high straight there with that 8 on the turn? Well, I mean, actually, it's I guess I didn't need the turn, but the river was nice. So yeah, this is Team Gripsed on the line, turning 14% dreams into 100% weens all day long, all the time. So with that elimination, we are down to the final 3, guaranteed 3,700 euros, and we continue to rock and roll. Got to raise them buttons. Got to keep that pressure on. Can't take no hands off, because if you take hands off, other people are going to be getting their hands on your chips, and you just got to stay strong. You got to keep the pressure on until the job is done. Once the heads up match is over, then you can relax. But this is the best part. This is when the adrenaline is kicking in. This is when the confidence is rising and you're feeling it and you can see the finish line and you know that it's possible, and what you've been working for all day and what you've possibly been dreaming about for a long time is right there on the horizon. The important thing is to not collapse or slow down when the finish line is within sight. Just keep running. Keep breathing. Keep clicking. Keep thinking. And keep making those good decisions that got you here. Because if you've made it this far in the tournament, you've got what it takes to make it to the end. Just, keep trusting yourself and keep believing and keep telling yourself, I got this. I can do this. I've been preparing for this, and I'm going to get what I came to get. This lead, I'll go through in my notes why I did it, but I don't really like it. I know that I defended preflop because I want to keep his weaker hands in, and I'm definitely ahead of the range. On the flop, I could definitely still have the best hand with king high. He's going to be continuation betting a lot, and I do have the gut shot as well for a little bit of a plinko free roll. And then on the turn, I wanted to fold him off of his weaker hands, his airy hands that made 2-barrel. But if I think that if I'm just trying to fold out hands that I have beat, then I should just check and call. There's no reason to lead at the pot. So I lead, and then I just give up on the river. He takes down, and free money is doing a little getting stacking of his own. So he hits Jay Cutler with the 3-piece. Flop comes king 8-6, great spot to c-bet, which he does, and Jay Cutler calls. So you got to think Jay's got what? What do you think the worst hand that Jay's going to call with pre-flop and then call the flop with? Keep in mind, he did not 4-bet pre-flop, so you got to strip some of those hands from the range. And he did not raise the flop, which he might do with some of his hands he chose to bluff with, as opposed to floating. But I would like to take this opportunity for you guys to ponder what his range looks like, and then based on that, decide if you think free money's bet here with, well, you'll see what it is in a second, was a good play. Okay, so you guys had the time to do that. Pause the video, put in his range. Okay, well, my man, free money, true to his name, decided that over betting all in with the old nothing ball against the man who had called the 3-bet and called the c-bet on the king high board was the move, was the spot, was the play that he had to take. And he, my friends, was wrong. Because when you get it in on the turn, there's no 30% of the time it works every time. No, it's a little bit more like 7% of the time it's going to work. And 7% of the time ain't very often. So with that elimination, thanks to our man Jay Cutler, we have made it to the heads-up portion of the tournament. Guaranteed, I'll get it exactly specific, I won't round up this time. Guaranteed 4,864 euros and playing for 6,992 euros up top. I think this is a good spot to finish part 4 of the series, and part 5 we will just play out the heads-up match and see how this exciting journey came to a conclusion. So I hope you found part 4 insightful and informative. This has been evan4gripst.com saying I will see you back here for part 5.